The U.S. economy remains strong, and core inflation remains uncomfortably above our 2% target. In light of these economic conditions, a few further considerations supported the case for a more measured approach in beginning the process to recalibrate our policy stance to remove restriction and to move to a more neutral stance.
That was Federal Reserve Governor Michelle Bowman delivering comments on the state of the economy this morning. She was the only Fed governor to cast a dissenting vote for a 50 basis point cut at the September meeting. That brings us to today's strategy session. Our next guest says that the Fed's outsized cut was the right thing to do, but markets are in a fragile place. Joining us now is Irene Tunkel, BCA Research Chief U.S. Equity Strategist. All right, how fragile are we talking here? Because you hear the comments from Fed Chair Michelle Bowman, who was the lone dissenting vote. So where exactly in the fragility kind of spectrum are you placing things?
Why did I say that? Well, I think that I would not say that we're in a recession. We are not in a recession right now. Mm-hmm. I think that the reason we say fragility and generally, have a slightly more, bearish tone to everything, we write is we do not like the trajectory of the U.S. economy. And what worries us the most is the direction of the job market. So it's not about the unemployment rate per se, but it's about some of the leading indicators of the job market, such as job openings, such as number of people working part-time for economic reasons. There is plenty of other ones. So basically, if you lose a job, it's a little harder to find a job. So I think the job market is now in the center of this discussion. And I would say that the reason that the Fed did 50 bips is because they were responding to the same concerns. So yes, economy is strong as of now. You may say that it is in a soft landing now. The problem is that soft landing is almost like a temporary state. And so to stay here would require lots of luck. I would say even more than skill. Mm.
So then does that mean that for the Fed's next decision, I would guess that you think it probably makes sense to go another 50 basis point cut in November?
Well, I think that when I say that it's skill versus luck, there's a lot in play here because inflation is above the target, just as Governor Bowman said. Mm-hmm. So I think that they need to balance the risk that they will reignite the economy and inflation will go up. And there are many sort of negative repercussions to that. First, they may have to reverse their easing cycle and have to raise rates again. That will have a very negative effect on the economy and the market. And also, this may push the treasury rates up. And that will more or less undo all this easing process. Mm-hmm. So they really are working a tightrope. So it's really hard. And that's why it will require lots of skill. The instruments are too blunt.
And so with that in mind, are the instruments that they have going to be able to kind of walk that tightrope? And where in the other data points that the Fed should be evaluating, can they look for some sense of calm even when they are implementing policy?
Yeah, well, what do they have? They move the rates. They don't really feel the effect. They don't see the effects of the rates until they kind of go through the economy, which is 3 to 6 months. That's the main tool that they have. And so these long and variable lags make it very difficult. And the reason that I say skill versus luck, they may be very skillful. And I would say that so far they've been doing an amazing job. But to keep economy, where it is, keeping it in balance is a hugely difficult task. I would say that probably they did the right thing, but let's say they do another 50 bips. What if they overdo? Because they don't even know what is this neutral rate, where economy doesn't grow, doesn't contract. So basically, they are working in the dark, sort of feeling their way.
So what does that mean investors should be doing? Should they be positioning more defensively? How should they then be approaching these uncertain next few months?
Yeah, it's a fair point. The market kind of keeps hitting the new highs every day, and you start to wonder, what is going on? And there was this amazing day on Thursday when the market just, surged. I think this is the initial reaction that we pretty much get at the beginning of every easing cycle. And after that, people kind of stop and pause like they do now and say, what does it really mean? Why did they go 50 bips? And it's not like the Fed knows something we do not know. We all look at the same data. But I think that 50 bip cut underlined their concerns about, the employment side of their dual mandate. And if that is so they are not just normalizing, which they do, but it's not only that, because otherwise they would be much, more careful moving. Mm-hmm. They made a big step. So there are underlying concerns about the economy. If there are underlying concerns about the economy, it means that the economy is actually getting worse, and investors should position defensively. And if you saw what was working in the run-up to this cut was defensive, actually.
We often hear defensively, and it's kind of, a broad stroke on some very specific parameters that investors should be looking at. What are the characteristics of the defensive trade?
Well, if I'm to be very technical, I would say low beta, so something that makes portfolio less volatile, less responsive to the market moves. But in practical terms, what is defensive? These are sectors and companies who have very stable earnings stream. Utilities, you always need utilities. Telecoms, no one can live without their phones these days. Healthcare, no matter what, you will have to get your treatment. And consumer staples, parts of it are a little bit, I would say, maybe a little bit more exposed to, slowing economy, but generally you gotta buy your staples. And that means that even in a recession, they will be generating earnings growth. Perhaps not very exciting. They never do.
Steady.
They try, though.
So, yeah.
They try.
All right, Irene, thanks so much for joining us here.
My pleasure.
On Set today.